Okay, so this is an introduction to operations management. The topic we talk about is operations and productivity. This is the first chapter of our book, and we will just discuss some general topics, and we will go over majority of topics that we will learn this semester, and we can have a discussion on each one. So the global company profile, every chapter of this book will go over one of the top management systems in our industry professionals in that area. So Hard Rock Cafe, I'm sure many of you know its name or have been there. I personally am a fan. I've been there for years. I've been to Hard Rock Cafe of many cities, actually many countries as well. So I love their service, and that just makes me happy going there. But the management behind it is actually if you look into behind what's happening in Hard Rock Cafe, how they provide that service to customers, that's a very big management. That's a very big effort. Many people are working hard just to make sure in the supply chain they have raw material, food and drinks coming in on time. There is enough for everyone to be served. It's cooked on time with a certain quality, and the service is provided. The cleanliness, the making sure that customers are happy, right? So all of these requires management. So since all of these are operational, these require operations management. So we'll learn in this chapter what is operations management, organizing the produced goods and services. We'll talk about the supply chain, and we'll talk about why do we need to study OM or operations management, what operation managers do, and we'll talk about those stuff. We'll also talk about the heritage of operation management, operations for goods and services, productivity challenge, current challenges in operations management, ethics, social responsibility, and sustainability. So Hard Rock Cafe was first started or opened in 1971. Now they have, so this book, let's say 150 restaurants in over 53 countries, is not exact, so it's changing. By the time this book was published, that was the time we had 150 restaurants in over 53 countries. When you say Hard Rock Cafe, the first thing you can remember is rock music. Create value in the form of food, good food and entertainment. 3,500 plus customer meals per day, only in one city. So the question is, how does an item get on the menu, and how much work and management is being done so that that customer goes there for 1 or 2 hours, enjoys, pays, and go out. Role of the operation management manager is, what is the role of the operation manager in that area? So each chapter of this book comes up with one of those big management system in the industry. And one of those services that you already have seen it, and it will talk about its history. It's about how its management works. It tells you how the supply chain works. So that is the part that you will have to read. There will be questions on homework about that reading part that you will answer. So learning objectives, one of the most important ones is defining operation management, explain the distinction between goods and services, difference between production and productivity, compute the single factor productivity, multi-factor productivity, the critical variables in enhancing productivity. So production is creation of goods and services. Operations management is the set of activities or operations that create value in the form of goods and services by transforming inputs into outputs. So every system that you consider has inputs and outputs. So in general, in management, we're trying to effectively and efficiently use our resources to combine them and use them and come up with output, more output. So in general, we can try to use the minimum possible number of resources or inputs and create the maximum output. So there are essential functions for operations management are marketing, that generates demand. Production operations create the product. You might have finance and accounting, which track how well the organization is doing, pays bills, and collect the money. That's an example of an organization which has a marketing part. Marketing department takes care of loans, commercial, industrial, financial, personal, mortgage. We have trust department. We have finances, investments, securities, real estate, accounting, auditing. So these two parts, two sections on the right hand side, finance and marketing. So these are not what we are interested in. We're more interested in the operations part and managing the operations part, like teller scheduling, check clearing, collections, transaction processing, facilities, design and layout, vault operation, maintenance, and security. So these are the parts that are operational and needs different type of management. Another example can be an airline. So I'm sure most of you have traveled with the planes, and when you go to an airport and you want to take a flight and go to another place, there's tons of work. There's tons of work being done behind the scene. So you can easily go there, stay in line, get your ticket done, go to your seat. You have the flight. You arrive to your destination. Again, you want to go down, you want to take your baggages, right? And then you want to check out and go to your destination. So there's a lot of operations, a lot of calculations, a lot of management is going on there. So these operations include ground support equipment, maintenance, ground operations, facility maintenance, catering, flight operations, crew scheduling, flying, communication, dispatching, management sciences. Of course, if you want, you can name a lot of other operations being done in an airport and a flight, in an airline, that are not written here, that we can use them to manage the airline. So, of course, we have finance and marketing as well here. Again, we're not interested in those parts. So let me answer a few questions here. PowerPoint is under files, if anyone was wondering. Yeah. So PowerPoint is, if you go to the home page, you can see the PowerPoint, and it should be on the module, the second module. Another example, manufacturing, which actually has more operations. Facilities, construction and maintenance, production and inventory control, scheduling, material control, quality assurance and control, supply chain management, manufacturing, tooling, fabrication, assembly, design, product development and design, industrial engineering, process analysis, right? Next is supply chain. So I'm sure you have heard about supply chain, but what is a supply chain? It's a global network of organizations and activities that supply a firm with goods and services. So you can see here a retailer that you go and buy some products from them, like maybe Walmart or maybe any store, right? There is a raw material coming from a farmer. Farmers produce the product. In this case, the syrup producer do the manufacturing part, the chemical parts. It goes and become, they fill it up into bottles, and they transport. Transportation or distribution is the next step, and at the end of the day, it delivers to customers' hands, right? So, of course, there are a lot of other operations being done in this middle, but we try to just simplify it into few steps so we can see what we mean by supply chain, from raw material to the product that arrives to the hands of customers. That's what we mean by supply chain. Every factor, every step of the way is the supply chain, and managing it and making sure that products are smoothly and on time with a certain quality managed, are handled and delivered to the hands of customers. And of course, if you can't manage that supply chain well, few days will get there that customer will go to the retail shop and the product is not there to buy. And if the product is not there to buy, what your customer is going to do? They're going to buy it from somewhere else. And among half or 25 to half, 50% of those customers that one or two times it happened to them that they get back to your store and it's not, the product is not there, they're not going to come back because they're going to learn somewhere new to buy the same product. Okay, so you will lose customers. So you don't want to let that happen. Members of supply chain collaborate to achieve high levels of customer satisfaction, efficiency, and competitive advantage. Remember that when we're talking about supply chain management, you always, as a manager of supply chain, you always need to have alternatives. So you don't want to rely only on one farmer. If anything goes wrong with that farmer, fires start, earthquake, illness of the workers or employees, right? Or anything, any disease gets to that farm, then you will be done. It's a long time work to get another farmer to have contract and make sure they have the quality that you want. So make sure all these steps, you always have multiple alternatives. So if one of them fail, you still have other alternatives to support you. So that's actually very important. But how many alternatives you need to have? That's something that you will learn in this course. This will be actually talked about almost at the end of the semester. We will talk about how many alternatives is efficient for us to have. Sometimes 2 is enough, sometimes 3 or 4 is enough. It really depends on the problem we are looking into. You don't want to rely on only one distributor. If anything goes wrong, if they decide to increase their cost, if something goes wrong with their cars, right? You don't want to get screwed by that company alone. So you want to have a kind of alternatives. If one of them fail or 2 of them fail, you still have other choices and you can survive. So why study operations management? Operation management is one of the 3 major functions of any organization. We want to study how people organize themselves for productive enterprise. We want and we need to know how goods and services are produced, We want to understand what operations managers do, and operation management is such a costly part of an organization. So we have an example here. Of course, this example is made. There are many factors that are not included in this example. It's just an example for you to have a good idea of why it's important to spend time and learn operations management. So let's see what we have. We have a option for increasing contribution. So we have an organization with marketing, finance, accounting, and operation management options. On the sales part, currently $100,000 is the cost. Marketing $150,000. This is the current sale, right? Marketing $150,000. Finance $100,000. Operation management $100,000. So let's just focus. If we are focused on the marketing option, meaning that we are spending more on the marketing. If we spend more on marketing, cost of goods $120,000. Why is that happening? Why in the next two, in the finance, we have less cost of goods? In the operation management event, we have much less cost of goods. Can anyone explain that? So we're comparing these three, right? The first column, the second column is our focus and our investment is on marketing of the organization. And the second one, we're focusing and spending a lot on finance and accounting part. And the last one, we are spending, investing on operation management part. So we hire more professional operation managers, and we hire more people to take care of the operation management part, right? So we're comparing that. On the marketing, the one that we spend more on marketing, the cost of goods is $120,000. The second one, finance accounting, is $80,000. On the operation management, the cost of goods is $64,000. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to explain it? It's very obvious, right?
It's showing that the operations option is the most attractive because you have the highest margins compared to the other techniques, I guess, is what it's showing.
And what is it towards? Towards goods, right? You're producing goods.
So marketing, you increase your sales, but you suffer in other areas. For instance, cost of goods is significantly more. When you emphasize marketing, it's shown.
So when you're producing goods, a lot of operations are going on. Is that right? Less marketing and less accounting is involved into production of goods. Does that make sense? And because, if you use operation management techniques, you can actually reduce the cost of producing goods. Does that make sense? As a result, you have less cost compared to when you spend more on marketing. Does that make sense? If it doesn't...
Operation manager would decide if you have too many employees or if you need to change where you get your materials, make new contracts.
Exactly. Exactly. So an operation management manager can come up with a design that with 2 employees you can, and with maybe 2 machines, you can produce a good, same good. But if that management does not exist, maybe you hire 5 people and use 3 machines to produce the same amount of goods. Does that make sense? So the knowledge of operations actually can reduce the cost of producing goods. And if you can produce goods with a lower cost, that actually at the end of the day, if you are selling with the same price, what happens? You're making more profit. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's one of them. Gross margin, of course, is going to be higher on operation management because you have less cost. Finance cost. So in marketing, 6,000. When you have accountants and finance people, professionals working on it, of course you have less finance cost. And operation management, let's say it's the same. When you add up these numbers, right? Subtotal is 30,000 for operation management, and you can see that it's higher than the others. Minus taxes, let's say it's 25%. It's for all days, so $22,500 is the contribution or the profit that you make if you spend more on operations when you are producing goods. Of course, there are special cases that this does not work for it, but if you're actually producing material, using using machine and resources to create something, then this most probably will work. So we're not saying every organization, every producer is going to have the same process, have the same example, but this can be true for more producers, right? Producers of goods, not services. Anyone wants to talk about it? Anything against it? Any examples that you want to talk about? Okay, no comments? Okay, let's move on. What operation managers do? So there are a few things that operation managers in general do. Again, these are not unique. There are many other things involved, but we can just divide it into these basic functions, right? Planning, which is, I can say, the most important part of operations management is planning. So you want to have a good plan for your business, for your organization. Organizing based on the plan. Staffing, so when your plan is ready, you want to add professionals, staff, employees to get those things done, right? Then you want to lead them, leading those staff to complete each operation or task, and at the end of the day, all of these tasks together give you the final production. And you want to control. Why do you want to control it? Let's say the first week everything goes smoothly. If you want this continues for years, you need to collect data, and you need to make sure that this process is going always smooth as the first days or first weeks. If you don't do that, if you don't collect data, we will never find out if something goes wrong, where it's coming from. So that's very important for us. If you have any questions, please just unmute yourself and feel free to ask. Okay, so some of these operations, 10 strategic decisions, right? So we have design of goods and services, managing quality, process capacity strategy. These are in different chapters that we have. Location strategy, we did talk about it on hotels. Layout strategy, human resource and job design. Look, any of these that we're talking, in the example we created together and you guessed some of the operations, you actually said, for those two examples we worked together, each of you said one of these. Do you remember? Supply chain management, inventory management, scheduling, and maintenance. So throughout this semester, we're going to go over these topics in different chapters. Strategic decisions, so design of goods and services, defines what is required of operations. Product design determine quality, sustainability, and human resources. Managing quality Determine the customer's quality expectations. Establish policies and procedures to identify and achieve that quality. Process and capacity strategy is how is a good service produced. Commits management to specific technology, quality, resources, and investment. Location strategy, nearest to customers, suppliers, and talent. Considering cost, infrastructure, logistics, and governments.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is
Layout strategy. So integrate capacity needs, personnel levels, technology, and inventory. Determine the efficient flow of materials. So that's very important. People and information. So this flow, efficient flow of material, people, and information is, I can say, one of the most important things that we have in our processes. Because if it's not efficient, what do we mean by efficient? Efficient means with less resources you can have more productivity or more output, right? And if this flow is not smooth, is not done well, it actually can cost businesses and organizations a lot. And high cost means you have no profit. No profit means in few weeks, few months, few years, you're going to go out of business. Human resources and job design, which is actually very important, also goes back to the talent that we just talked about it. Making sure you hire someone who is actually matched to that job and can get that job done, can get that task done. Supply chain management, we just talked about it. So integrate supply chain into the firm strategy. Determine what is to be purchased, from whom, and under what conditions. Again, supply chain is actually one of the most important topics of any organization, especially if you are producing goods and you want to deliver it to customers. The cost of supply chain is normally very high, and one of the very interesting topics in management and in operations management or operations research is how we can reduce the cost of supply chain, because there's a high cost in transportation, getting raw material with the lowest cost and highest quality, making sure that inventory is going to work well with the low cost. So next is inventory management. Inventory ordering, holding decisions. So you know that holding material, holding products in a certain inventory place is actually very costly. So you don't want to keep material or products for a long time in a place. At the same time, you want to make sure when the customer gets there to buy the product, you have enough of the product to sell. So it's very important to manage and make sure we have enough to sell to our customers, and at the same time, we don't have to have a high cost of inventory. So I told you we will spend about 3 weeks on inventory management, and that shows the importance of it. And actually that can add a very good value to your CV if you learn it and add it to your CV. And of course you need to know it when you go for an interview. They're going to ask you about it, and if you know it, you get hired. Instead of getting paid like $20, $30 an hour, they may pay you $50, $60 an hour. Determine and implement, so that's for scheduling. Determine and implement intermediate and short-term schedules. Utilize personnel and facilities while meeting customer demands. Maintenance. Consider facility capacity, production demand, and personnel. Maintain a reliable and stable process. So, does all these 10 different strategic decisions make sense to you? I think we talked about all of it, right? If you want more example of any of these, or if you want to talk about any of these, you have any specific experience you want to share with other students, feel free to open your mic and just talk. Okay, open to hear from you, and we can learn by talking about it. Okay, any questions, any comments? Cool, nice, let's continue. Where are the OM jobs? So I can say almost everywhere, right? Technology methods, facilities, space utilization, strategic issues, response time, people or team developments, customer service, quality control, cost reduction. Anywhere you want to have cost reduction, operational management works. Inventory reduction, production improvement. There are many other things we can add here, okay? But these are actually the main ones that are bold. Any questions, any comments? Cool. Okay, so there are certifications for operation managers. These are quite old ones. So won't go over this part. Heritage of OM. These are the parts that you can actually read from the book. Where it starts, who were the top people in coming up with operation management theories and statistically or mathematically calculating numbers and coming up with methods. Computers. So we will talk about all of these in the next few chapters, and some history here about Eli Whitney, Frederick Taylor. So you can read this from the book. I won't ask about these on any exams. Okay, so feel free to read these. Okay, contribution from industrial engineering. So OM receives or gets its contribution in regards to research, development of models, formulas, and coming up with softwares. They come from industrial engineering, or I can actually say operations research, and industrial engineering are very close. Even industrial engineering formulas come from operations research. Statistics, management itself, economics, of course, when it comes to performance, efficiency, physical sciences, yes, that's true, and IT, information technology. If you want to talk about any of these, just feel free, open mic, and if you have anything against any of these, let us know or ask your question. Okay, what are services? Economic activities that typically produce an intangible product, like education, right? Entertainment, lodging, government, financial, and health services. This can be considered as service. Even hotels, right? Hotels are services. Do you agree? They provide services, right? Manufacturers produce tangible products. Services produce intangible products. Operations activities often they are very similar, distinct, not always clear, few pure services. Ride and airline seats, the seat itself. Do you see that? And I told you, in service industry, especially in tourism industry, when we are collecting data, we are giving questionnaires to people, we separate questions into tangible, intangible. Separately ask these questions, and at the end add them up together. Beauty salon produces a haircut that is consumed at it is produced. and product can usually be kept in inventory. Your investment and medical care are unique. Similar products like iPods, high customer interaction, customer is paying for consulting, education. For example, consulting, you talk to a financial consultant, someone who is helping you to save money for the future, right? They just teach you how to save money. They don't really give you anything that you take in your hand. iPhone, yep. So I think this is pretty much clear right now. And talking about the U.S. Economy, and when we are comparing services versus manufacturing versus agriculture, you can see that in before 1800s, majority of products in the U.S. were agriculture, right? You had less manufacturing and service. So at a certain time, we had increase in both services and manufacturing up to 1925. You can see these met almost being produced at the same time, at the same amount. And after that, you can see that even manufacturing reduced, agriculture reduced, and instead what's growing? Services are growing, right? As most advanced countries, they have this situation, because it's not efficient for them to produce. It's not efficient for them to do agricultural work, but rather they create technology, they have higher level of education, and that creates more services. Here you can see percent of all jobs. On the right hand side, you can see that in the US, 85.2% of jobs right now, and this is not right now, this is a few years ago, okay? A few years ago, 85%. Right now it's higher. 85% of jobs were in service sector. Education, trade, information, finance, food, and public administration. And less percentages go to mining, agriculture, construction, and manufacturing.